Aloha mai kako. That is a really long walk from that step over here. So, it's such an honor for me to be here in front of all of you this morning, help kick things off. First off, let me apologize in advance. My throat, my voice might be a little raspy. Non-COVID, don't worry. Multiple tests, but it's just a cough that I'm getting through, okay? Mayors, all those who I shook hands with on the table, don't worry, I use a lot of hand sanitizer, okay? So, when I was first invited to speak by Kuhio at this conference, my gut reaction was fear. Put me in front of utility industry CEOs on the mainland, or go to the New York, investor meetings. Okay, I can handle those. But Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, the largest conference, and what a terrific event this has been. I'm just so proud to be able to be a part of it. So, hulihia, deep transformational change. So I'm not a natural storyteller, but I will try my best to tell a tale of the company that I work for, Hawaiian Electric Industries, or HEI. And as McKenna said, right, HEI, we have Hawaiian Electric, we have American Savings Bank, and of course we have Pacific Current. So today actually happens to be the 136th anniversary of the very first day that electricity was actually demonstrated here on Oahu. So the parking lot area right in front of the downtown post office, in between there and Iolani Palace, right near the where the old Hawaiian Electric building is, that was they used to call that Palace Square. So in 1886, here was a story in the Pacific Commercial Advertiser. Shortly after 7 o'clock last night, the electricity was turned on, and as soon as darkness increased, the vicinity of Palace Square was flooded with a soft but brilliant light, which turned the night into day. By 8 o'clock, an immense crowd had gathered. Before 9 o'clock, the Royal Hawaiian Military Band commenced playing, and the military companies soon marched into the square. The battalion drill took place under the command of His Majesty the King. The evolutions of the battalion could be clearly seen by the aid of the electric lights. A tea party was given under the auspices of the Society for the Education of Hawaiian Children, organized by Her Royal Highness, the Princess Liliuokalani, and Her Royal Highness, the Princess Likelike. The palace was brightly illuminated, and the large crowd moving among the trees and tents made a pretty picture. The evening passed pleasantly until after 11 o'clock. After the band left, the crowd slowly dispersed. So think about that moment. So until then, nighttime in Honolulu was probably pretty dark, other than lanterns. People's daily routines were limited, but yet because of electricity, they were about to be dramatically transformed. You could stay up later, you could work differently, you could play differently. And this was only 5 years after Kalakaua first saw a light bulb when he visited Thomas Edison. 5 years. So back then, the Kingdom of Hawaii was one of the most innovative places in the world. And who knew what the possibilities would be for the future? It's not lost on me that last night was another huge celebration under all of these beautiful lights here in this ballroom. So hulihia, deep transformative change. In 1891, Hawaiian Electric Company was formed, and in the ensuing decades, electricity was steadily brought to the communities across the state, the islands back then. Hawaiian Electric thrived in those years. Communities were hungry for electricity, and Hawaii's economy grew. Military spending, agriculture, tourism. So years ago, I was able to hear Judge Tommy Kaulukukui once share the story of how when he was a little boy, back in the day, they used to look at the Hawaiian Electric linemen as like superheroes. So he shared the story of how the linemen would come into their neighborhoods with their truck, and they'd strap on their climbing gear on their boots, get out their big leather strap, and then they would just climb those poles. No bucket trucks in the day. These guys would just scoot up 30, 40 feet in the air. I've seen old photos of Kamehameha boys going through internship programs at Hawaiian Electric where they learned to be those superheroes. So back in the day, I would say things were pretty good. So in 1983, we went through a pretty big structural transformation. Our president at the time, 1983, by the way, I wasn't working there at the time. I was graduating at high school. So his name was Dudley Pratt, Punahou grad, by the way. So he restructured the company to form HEI. And the reason he did that was because Hawaii was going through a recession at the time. And there were a lot of concerns about what was happening in the economy and how would the company, Hawaiian Electric, survive if the economy was shrinking. So he really felt it critical for the survivability and the strength of the company to be able to go outside and go beyond what Hawaiian Electric does. So that's when he created HEI. The PUC had to approve that, and don't worry, they put on really strict requirements that actually are still in place today, that whatever HEI does outside of the utility cannot harm us electric customers. I am an electric customer too. So HEI acquired and created a handful of companies in the 80s: renewable energy, real estate development, mainland property investment. They bought a company called HIG, which was an insurance company. They also acquired Young Brothers and, of course, American Savings. So for our company, this was truly that deep transformative change, hulihia. We had never seen it before. Of course, it wasn't all rosy. In 1992, Hurricane Iniki hit Hawaii. And of course, we all know what happened. Kauai was devastated. HEI made the decision to walk away from HIG because they could not pay all of the claims from that hurricane. It took years to settle all of the lawsuits. And of course, as you can imagine, HEI's relationship and reputation in the community was deeply, deeply impacted. You know, I'm not sure how well HEI's relationship was back in the day, you know, even before Iniki. Dudley Pratt described the early years of HEI in the 80s as a, quote, story of rapid changes, expansion, diversification, and being often misunderstood by the public at large, and especially by some segments of the community who regard HEI as a threat. This was difficult for us because we look back on an involvement with our customers in Hawaii that spanned almost a century, and we felt we had earned the public's trust. Okay, I'm going to fast forward a bit. By the time I started at Hawaiian Electric in '93 as a young environmental scientist, our energy system was dominated by fossil fuels. We had just a few small renewable energy projects, mostly on the Big Island. The only source of renewable energy on Oahu at that time was the city's H-Power, the waste-to-energy plant. We were a very traditional electric company at the time. Insofar as our engineers, we planned the system. We got PUC permission to go build stuff. And if we did that correctly, we would be able to make money. So that was pretty much it. Well, right? We were the experts. Everyone trusted us. All was good. So here's another hulihia moment. The first time I walked into the Hawaiian Electric office, my first day on the job, my boss sat me down and he said, "Scott, you're going to work on these projects to go get environmental permits. These are power plant projects. But don't worry, we've done this many times before. And in fact, here, this one project, all you got to do is get Department of Health, get the permit from them. And all we have to do is get through the public hearing. They've already reviewed the permit. Here's your script to go to the public hearing. But don't worry, we've gone through this before. Okay? So, anybody guess what happened? I realized I was probably hired because Hawaiian Electric, my boss, he was looking for a young, bright local kid who would be willing to actually stand up in front of this angry crowd and read this 20-page long script, which just made the crowd even madder. Anyway, we learned through the 90s, the 2000s, into the 2010s, that the world was changing really, really fast, especially here in Hawaii. People's expectations were different about engagement, community engagement. They were different about what it meant to take care of the environment. It was different in terms of what it means to actually be a Hawaii company. Not a Florida company, a Hawaii company. So in 2008, we signed a clean energy agreement with the state of Hawaii, where we actually did commit in writing to heading towards that renewable energy future. And let me tell you, it was very difficult inside the walls, inside the meeting rooms of Hawaiian Electric at the time, because, you know, engineers, you get taught to know what the solutions are before you make a commitment. And we didn't know exactly how we were going to go forward. But yet, the leadership at the time, I was just a middle manager at the time, I'd say, but we had good leaders who said, this is the right thing to do, and we got to do it. And as long as we have help from others, then we can go forward. And that was the other thing. Our culture has always been, hey, we got this. We're the experts. We can take care of it ourselves. So this was a hulihia for us on a number of things, right? We're signing this energy agreement. We're also realizing that we have to change how we think of ourselves. We'll still try to be the best informed, right? The most professional. We work hard, and I'm very proud of the workforce across all of our companies, at the bank, at the utility, at Pacific Current, and at HEI, that we are professionals. And if we don't know something, we'll say we don't know something, but we'll work hard to figure it out. But what's also different, though, is that we recognize that we're not the only ones in the room. We have to be able to listen. We have to be able to consult with others, because they can also help bring solutions that we don't even know of. We've also had to transform how things get done, right? It's not about being the smartest person in the room or the one with the loudest voice. It's about creating trusting relationships, building common purpose that connects us together, and creating shared ownership. I think it's also critical that we put down our walls and we build our ability to have empathy for each other. And let me tell you, in engineering school, they never taught me the meaning of the word empathy. So at HEI, I'm blessed with being given the chance to lead the corporation, working with Shelly Kimura, who is now president of Hawaiian Electric, and Teranishi, who is president of American Savings Bank, into the next phase of our life, our next hulihia moment. So together with our board of directors, we all buy into the vision that together, HEI's family of companies can, should, and will have a positive, greater impact in our communities, above and beyond what each company does individually. We're working on instilling a common purpose across our family of companies that basically states our dedication to a better Hawaii, one that is thriving economically, environmentally, culturally, and socially. We're all in our community enjoying an abundance of resources and opportunities that enable them to achieve their hopes and dreams. I needed to read that to make sure I didn't leave a single word out of that. We want to energize all who work at our companies, doesn't matter where, which company. And very importantly, we want to allow our next generation of leaders to take ownership of this from the first day that they actually walk into the office. So I'm going to go a little bit off script. By the way, I'm my own script writer, so yeah. I criticize myself in my head. Why did I say that? What? So my off-script moment is this. So when you go away to college, you start working, especially in corporate America, right? I think it's very clear that we are expected to play a certain role. And there's a certain language to speak. And you know, we have so many different stakeholders. We have our investors, like I said, the Wall Street people. And when we go meet with them, they want to know what the numbers are, what you're expecting, what's the environment in Hawaii, what do you expect to happen in the next quarter. When we talk to our community, of course, most community members, they're mostly focused on why is that pole in my backyard? Or how come my electric bill is so high? Right? So there's all these different conversations and discussions and language that we immediately just have to focus on. That purpose statement that I just read is actually very, very powerful for me. It may sound similar to what you might hear other organizations say. But when you think about it, an electric company and a bank and a publicly held investor-owned company like HEI, where we talk mostly to stockholders and analysts and Standard & Poor's and all those folks, we normally don't talk about our commitment and our highest level purpose being to help Hawaii and our community thrive. Right? There's no mention of electricity in there. There's no mention of banking in there. There's no mention of stockholders in there. And let me tell you, when we first shared this with our leadership and with our board of directors, there were a lot of questions about, well, gee, what about the folks in New York? Or how are these other people going to see this? But here's the thing. This is actually what has to happen in order to motivate everybody in our company, like I said, to give them that spirit, that they're working for something greater than just the next quarter's earnings, or they're working for something that's more important than just having a good, steady job at one of our companies. I have never felt that the time is greater for alignment now between being in business as a Hawaiian and being able to move forward and be successful as a business, but that is centered on helping our community be successful first. Mahalo. I'm going to get back on script. Okay, my speechwriter is telling me, Scott, get on script. Okay, so here's the other thing. Excitedly, the investor world is also going through their own moment, their own hulihia. Some of you may be hearing about this thing called ESG, Environment, Social, Governance. Okay, we never knew about ESG until I think we started hearing about it 3-4 years ago. But what it talks about is that the largest investors in the world are now telling corporations it's not just about making money. We want to understand how you as a company are taking care of these important matters like climate change and diversity and making sure your communities are being successful as you are being successful. ESG is real. And every one of our companies in Hawaii that has investors, all of us are taking this very seriously. If we don't, we risk losing our investors. We also risk a change in our leadership at our companies. So to be clear, we're still a for-profit business, and we can't be all things to all people. But our premise is that our business will only succeed if our communities are strong. And as a company that has operations on every island, with over 3,600 employees, serving over 95% of our state's population, it's our kuleana to be more proactive in joining with others to work on the most pressing needs of our community. So if we do that right, Hawaii will be better. Our customers will succeed, and so will we. So with that, I want to mahalo all of you for allowing me to spend some time with you. I want to mahalo everybody who came before me, because I recognize that I'm standing up here, yes, the first Kamehameha grad in charge of HEI. But I have been taught by so many people along my journey, and I continue to be taught. So, Kuhio, I don't know where you're sitting, but I want to mahalo you for your leadership and really for taking our community to the next level. Mahalo.